us. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody. Sonia and I are, well, let me start with the first applause line of the night, actually. I'm here with my wife, Sonia. This is the loudest applause line, I think. So Sonia and I are from Miami. And, you know, we have been following the good work that y'all have been doing, the grassroots work, the hard work. And everybody has been following it, and hopefully replicating across the state, because this is the kind of work that it's going to take. So I'm running for Attorney General because we need somebody serving in that office who's fighting for the people and not the powerful. Should be a simple concept, right? As Attorney General, what I would prioritize is public safety, right? Protecting our children, dealing with the opioid crisis. I would also tackle the affordability crisis, right? There are plenty of ways in which the Attorney General has a central role in making our economy more fair, right? When you look at what other Attorney Generals do of either party, frankly, across the country, there is an emphasis on fighting those who are taking advantage of the people in their state, whether it's insurance companies, right? Whether it's companies ripping people off. But what happens in Tallahassee is that insurance companies, utilities, they get whatever they want in Tallahassee. It's a rubber stamp, right? I'm going to talk in a second about why it is that so many people in our state may have a vague idea of what the Attorney General is. And part of that reason is because we haven't had one for decades, right? So seriously, when I talk about the role the Attorney General has on making a more fair economy in this state and reducing costs, a lot of times like, really? Is that so? Well, yeah, absolutely, but we haven't had somebody doing that for a very long time. And I think the other thing that I talk about, and the other thing that will absolutely be central, is the corruption in this state, right? Having served in Tallahassee, I can tell you that we absolutely need an Attorney General who is focused on protecting us from the types of exploitation and corruption that happen in Tallahassee, rather than being at the center of it, which is the current Attorney General that we have. So, you know, I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and a lot of it has to do with the fact, so I'll just kind of give you the, so my wife and I are both from Miami, so I grew up in Miami. I served in the Peace Corps. After earning a Harvard Law degree, I came back home. I was a legal aid lawyer for much of my career. I served in the State House and in the State Senate. I've practiced law as a litigator, all 20 years since, with the exception of serving in the Biden administration. So I had the honor of leading the Employment and Training Administration for President Biden, delivering on so many economic policies that are really about equalizing opportunity. And we were just pumping out all kinds of partnerships, dollars, policies, not with any partisan lens, but really just trying to make folks' life better. And so when you look at my career trajectory and what it is that I'm most passionate about and why I talk about serving as the people's lawyer, it's because my whole career has been fighting for people who are being exploited by the powerful, right? People who are being taken advantage of by the corrupt. That's been my career, right? And that's how I plan to serve as Attorney General. I mentioned a little bit ago that we haven't had an Attorney General who's fully serving as the people's lawyer for decades. I'll give you two examples just from my own career. 20 years ago, I was the legal aid lawyer who coordinated a group of us to force the then Attorney General to acknowledge that they had the power and the obligation to enforce the state minimum wage and do more for working people, right? 8 years ago, I was the one leading the effort to hold the then Attorney General to account for the fact that she seemed to be refusing to sue opioid manufacturers at that point in the opioid crisis, which was perplexing because so many other states were doing it. Local governments were stepping up, right? So when I talk about corruption, the Attorney General I'm talking about happens to be, frankly, holding back the Epstein list right now. So you probably know what I'm talking about. But I think that one of the reasons why it's important for me to talk about what the job is of the Attorney General, to serve as the people's lawyer. It's a very old office. It goes way back to the beginning of our country. when our states had constitutions before the federal constitution, the office is supposed to look out for the people, right? It's not the governor's general counsel, right? And so talking about what the job is has been really important. And I'll tell you one moment when I realized how important it is talking about that. I hope you have not, as you mentioned, following the news a lot can be very dismaying, particularly for those of us who are following what's happening with this mass detention center in the Everglades, right? Following what's happening here. I got calls from a number of people who said, oh my gosh, I know what you're talking about. I had no idea the Attorney General could put this kind of thing together, right? And just to give you a flavor, right, not just as a candidate for Attorney General, but as a former state senator, as an attorney, when I look at how they were able to accomplish this disaster, right, they are relying on a emergency declaration that barely fits on a page and is really just a partisan drivel, in order to seize land from local government, go around the legislature, supposed to be dealing with the budget, right, and checks and balances, which I don't doubt that they would have put had they known that the plan that the governor and Attorney General Uthmeier had was to divert hundreds of millions of dollars that's supposed to be for emergency preparedness. And at the time, I and others were saying, hey, let's watch who is getting their hands on these contracts. In the next couple months, we're going to see it's the governor's and Uthmeier's campaign contributors. I was wrong. It took 3 days, right, to follow the money. Immediately told us what we already knew. And I think all of us in this room can understand the humanitarian component. We are having one of the deadliest years for deaths in ICE custody. Half of those nationally are in Florida, right? Putting law enforcement no law enforcement agency, no law enforcement official wants deaths in custody, right? And so we are putting ourselves in a very difficult position. We're putting our law enforcement in a very difficult position. All of this for a political stunt, right? All of this they did in order to get the president to come down, pat them on the head and say, yes, you are cruel and you are lawless, right? That is what they wanted. The message is cruelty as immigration policy. That's un-American, and it's also disgusting, right? When you see the diversion of taxpayer resources, like it's their own piggy bank, in order to just have a press conference and do these kind of things. That is not the job of the Attorney General. But as I mentioned, one of the things that's happened is that people are waking up to just how important this office is. And one of the things that I'm saying is, yes, it can do those things, but it can also fight for us and fight to reduce costs, fight to give people a better life, and not just have press conferences and draw attention from DC.